For the first time in the history of the band, we didn't do a tour following the release of the album. In fact, 2 full years would pass between the end of the 1980 Australian tour and the next time we played live in late December 1982. I grew a beard. I spent the bulk of my time one-on-one with a number of women, either ones I knew around New York or ones I flew in from elsewhere. I didn't attend big social events. I just laid low in a series of relationships with multiple women.
Oops. Girls come up to me, and they're a little older. They go, "Hi, remember me?" And my first question is, did I fuck you? Because I can't remember. I was loaded. I mean, I'm not perfect. You know, I've had numerous affairs.
No.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Well, nowhere near the amount Gene's been with.
Huh?
Well, you know, Gene has had a love affair with women since he was young, you know. You know, Gene, you know.
What?
Whatever.
A swimsuit model I was seeing at the time said to me, "You'll never be happy because you're so tough on people and so judgmental." She was right. At the time, I didn't realize just how right. That was how I functioned, how I controlled the world around me. Everything had its place. I controlled my environment,
Whatever.
but I didn't really live in it. Now, I'm not crying in my beer because hanging around with beautiful women was like spending my days and nights at Disneyland, no matter what my motivation was. And it certainly beat the alternative way people dealt with similar feelings of emptiness, like filling it with drugs, surrounding themselves with people who constantly told them how great they were, or winding up blue on the bathroom floor.
Not really. Paul runs the band. A statement about depression, and they're calling Gene, the front man of the band, and I know that's pissing off Paul, because Paul's the front man of the band. They fight like cats. You know, the problem with them is they're bonded at the hip because of Kiss, and the makeup and the whole Kiss machine.
The allure of buying fancy things was wearing off. I realized while the band was idle that it wasn't about what I could buy with the money. It was about what I didn't have to do. Simply put, money gives you the ability to stop worrying about money. It provides a level of freedom, but it doesn't change you.
No.
At the end of the day, you're still the same good guy or the same prick you've always been.
I never said I was more than I am.
Or in my case, the same scared little kid.
You're all so weak, you know it makes me ill.
Yeah, I mean, you know.
But I needed to try something else to address the fundamental unease inside me. Then, during a visit to my therapist, Dr. Hilson, he said,
Don't like you now and probably never will.
"I found a guy for you." "What do you mean?"
You're not well.
"I found somebody who I think can do reconstructive surgery on your ear." He had read an article about a Dr. Frederick Ruckert and then tracked him down. The surgeon worked at a hospital in Hanover, New Hampshire, home of Dartmouth University. I was excited. I wanted 2 ears. Suddenly, I had hope. I hoped having 2 ears and erasing that constant reminder of my childhood would help me feel more complete on the inside. I wanted to move on. The healing process after the skin grafts didn't go so well. I had to stay in the hospital for a few weeks as they monitored and worked to correct the problems to avoid the skin dying from lack of blood supply. My parents and niece were there with me in New Hampshire. Gene came too. He was going through a period of being very afraid to fly, so I gave him a lot of credit for visiting and really appreciated it. Finally healed, I cut my hair short and started hanging out in an Upper West Side watering hole called Cafe Central. I decided to take a break from spending time in music circles. Cafe Central was more of an actor's hangout, a bar with tables, and people spent entire nights table hopping. Regulars included Christopher Reeves, Peter Weller, Raul Julia, and Al Pacino, and Bruce Willis was a bartender for a time. If musicians bored me with talk of gear and guitars, I soon found out that most of the actors I met wanted to talk about only themselves. They seemed to endure listening to their peers only so they would get a turn to talk about themselves. Still, I welcomed the change of scenery for a while. I started going to the theater almost every week. I had a ticket broker and I'd call and say, "What have you got for tonight?" I found it interesting that so many people in New York, myself included, talked about the culture of the city, but never actually experienced it. I took some acting classes too. I sat in on Lee Strasberg's classes once or twice. At one class, a woman got up to do a scene in front of him and broke down crying before she started the scene. This is nuts. I thought you acted from joy, not torment.
No.
One night when I was out at a restaurant having dinner, the actress Donna Dixon and a model friend of hers walked in. Donna was staggeringly attractive, so much so that it was intimidating.
She looks like a pretty clean lady.
So much so that I went for the woman who turned out to be her roommate. Donna was just too beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
But after I had seen her friend a few times, I admitted to myself and to her that I was actually interested in Donna. And somehow it worked. I started seeing Donna. I loved having such a gorgeous girlfriend. As superficial as it may have been, she was beautiful in a way that made me happy. With hindsight, I can see that dating her was clearly another example of my trying to eradicate my own imperfections by being with someone seemingly perfect. Anyone who could date a woman who looked like that must be special. But at the time, I was very taken with her. When she entered a room, the room came to a halt, and I was with her.
Polygram decided to release a greatest hits record in Europe only that was to be called Killers. We needed 4 new songs for it, so we got together with a producer named Michael Jackson, whom Paul and I liked very much. He came from a different musical background, but had some good ideas. He had produced Jesse Colin Young from the Youngbloods, one of my favorite bands.
We met at a restaurant called The Melting Pot on the corner of La Cienega Boulevard and Melrose. When we started chatting, Michael said, "What you guys need to do is write some hit songs." Gee, why didn't I think of that? Fucking brilliant. But I liked him despite being momentarily thrown by that insight. He was very introspective and intellectual, and we began to hit it off.
On meeting him, I strongly urged him to do something about his name. I mean, 2 Michael Jacksons just wouldn't fly. No. I suggested Michael James Jackson, and he did change it to that.
Also, even though I wasn't sure what he had to offer musically, we needed someone. I knew that Gene and I weren't at a point where we could be productive together because neither of us wanted to compromise our respective musical ideas. We needed an intermediary in the studio, someone to be the swing vote.
The writing process started. It was clear things would be different. Ace was nowhere to be found.
I needed to get away. I wanted to go to Studio 54 and enjoy my stardom. I knew, I'd be leaving the group to form up my own band, and so far so good,
We would deal with that issue when and if we had to, but for now we had work to do.
They're a little upset.
Kiss moved to Los Angeles, where Jackson was based. Paul and Eric rented places, and I moved into Diana's Beverly Hills home. I was completely distracted by Hollywood and movies, and my songwriting as a consequence suffered greatly. The 4 new songs were all written by Paul and co-writers. One of Paul's songs needed a bridge, so I suggested a melody line he didn't care for. I saved the melody and would later reuse it as the centerpiece of a song called I Love It Loud. I Love It Loud. By 1981, I was spending more and more time in Hollywood. I was approached by Marcy Carsey, a producer of shows like The Cosby Show and Roseanne, to try out for a show to be called Grotus. I would be the star. I shot a short pilot, and everyone seemed to like it enough to get me in front of the ABC staff. There were 10 people around a table, and we chatted for 5 minutes. Then they offered me my own TV series. I was stunned. I went outside with my business guy, who explained the deal to me. I would get $60,000 an episode. He told me if I left Kiss, where I was making substantially more, I would in essence be paying for the privilege of being on television. Aucoin and the band were not happy with me being on TV. No. This confirmed for them what they told me earlier, that I had gone Hollywood, the worst thing you could do back then. The band was in turmoil. Ace was miserable.
What the hell's going on?
Aucoin was slacking. Eric was disillusioned.
You betcha.
And Paul felt betrayed by my interest in television. And my fans weren't happy either. The press was having a field day talking about the beast from Kiss, who was dating the Motown diva. The fans turned on me because of it. If I had wanted to live my own life, and if this was the price I had to pay, so be it. But in the end, I didn't do the TV show. I stayed with the band. At one point, Paul drove up to Ace's house to find out what was wrong.
We went to the mall, drove around, talked. Don't leave, I told him. Stay in the band.
No.
I found out years later that he didn't remember I had been there.
Oh, okay. Well, after all the alcohol and drugs I've done over the years, I lost a few brain cells, so my memory's not what it used to be.
Many pages of Ace's past are now blank. That's how blasted he was. He was living in a constant state of blackout.
I've done it all. I have no regrets.
Ace launched into a long speech about how he needed a solo career. Paul very reasonably told him he could have both.
Oh, no.
Ace rejected the idea out of hand, and it became patently obvious that he was going to leave Kiss.
Well, the whole idea behind rock and roll is supposed to be fun. You get out there, you listen to music, and it makes you happy. Kiss used to be fun for me. When it got to the point where it wasn't fun anymore, I quit.
Bill worked out a deal to let Ace leave, but have him make promotional appearances for the next album, which we planned to make in Los Angeles. In some ways, I was glad Ace finally left.
Oh, I didn't care.
We couldn't go anywhere with him the way he was.
Well, how can I complain when I'm late and I'm loaded and